There is a moment when certain people realize they can no longer control you. And when that happens, they don't always walk away. Sometimes they change tactics. They become colder. They become louder. They create confusion. They test your boundaries. And sometimes they suddenly become incredibly nice. The dangerous part is that you may mistake these behaviors for something else. You may think you did something wrong. You may think you need to explain yourself. You may even feel guilty for finally protecting your peace. But there is a deeper psychological pattern happening. And once you recognize it, you stop reacting to their behavior and start understanding what it means. Because the final thing people do when they realize they can't control you is often the thing that reveals their real intention. 1. They test your boundaries. The first thing they often do is test you. Not necessarily with something dramatic. It may be something small. They ask for a favor after you've already said no. They make a disrespectful comment and watch your reaction. They cross a boundary you clearly established. Then they wait. They're looking for one thing. Will you enforce what you said? Because a boundary that has no consequence is only a request. Imagine you've spent years answering every call, every message, every demand. Then one day you stop responding immediately. Suddenly they ask, "What's wrong with you?" Notice the question. They're not necessarily asking because they care. Sometimes they're asking because your behavior has changed. You are no longer as predictable as you used to be. And unpredictability becomes uncomfortable to someone who depended on controlling your reactions. This is where Stoicism becomes powerful. Epictetus taught that we don't control what happens around us. We control our judgments and responses. So when someone discovers that they can no longer control your response, they have lost something they were relying on. But that's only the surface. Because if testing your boundaries doesn't work, they often move to something more psychological. 2. They try to make you feel guilty. This is where things become more subtle. Because guilt can make you control yourself without anyone having to control you directly. Think about it. Someone doesn't need to force you to do something. If they can make you feel like a bad person for refusing, they might say, "After everything I've done for you, I can't believe you've changed. You used to care. You've become selfish." And suddenly you're defending yourself, explaining yourself, reconsidering your decision, maybe even apologizing. But ask yourself something. Did you actually do something wrong? Or did you simply stop doing something they benefited from? Those are two completely different things. Kindness is powerful, but kindness without boundaries can become self-abandonment. And sometimes the person who complains the loudest about your boundaries is the person who benefited most from you having none. A Stoic doesn't measure the quality of a decision by whether everyone approves of it. They measure it by whether the decision is aligned with reason, character, and principle. You don't need everyone to understand your boundary. You need to understand why you created it. And that distinction matters. Because once guilt stops controlling you, another tactic often appears. 3. They try to provoke a reaction. Now listen carefully. This one can look completely different. They may criticize you, ignore you, mock you, post something designed to get your attention, mention someone else just to make you jealous, or say something they know will irritate you. Why? Because emotional reactions reveal where your buttons are. If they can make you angry whenever they want, they still have access to you. And this is where many people lose their power. They think strength means winning the argument. It doesn't. Sometimes strength is refusing to enter the argument. Imagine someone throws a match at you. Your first instinct is to pick it up and throw it back. But now both of you are holding fire. The Stoic asks a different question. Do I need to pick this up? That question changes everything. You cannot control what someone says, but you can control whether their words become instructions for your nervous system. You can hear an insult and choose not to become one. You can hear criticism and decide whether there is anything useful inside it. You can feel anger without allowing anger to choose your next action. That is emotional discipline. But here's where things get uncomfortable. Sometimes people don't provoke you because they want an argument. They provoke you because they want proof that they still matter to you. And that leads to something even more deceptive. 4. They suddenly become nice. Now here's the twist. Not everyone becomes aggressive when they lose control. Some become extremely pleasant. They apologize. They compliment you. They suddenly remember your value. They become affectionate again. And if you've been waiting for that person to change, this can be incredibly powerful. You think, maybe they finally understand. Maybe things are different now. Maybe. But don't judge transformation by words. Watch patterns. Anyone can behave differently for a week. Real change survives when they don't get what they want. That's the test. If their kindness disappears the moment you say no, it may not have been kindness. It may have been strategy. This doesn't mean you should become cynical. It means you should become observant. A Stoic doesn't assume everyone is an enemy. But a Stoic also doesn't surrender judgment simply because someone becomes pleasant. You can accept an apology without restoring the same level of access. You can forgive someone without giving them permission to repeat the same behavior. You can wish someone well without inviting them back into every part of your life. And this is where many people confuse forgiveness with access. They are not the same thing. But there's another tactic that can be even more effective than guilt, anger, or fake kindness. 5. They create confusion. Now here's where this becomes psychological. When someone can't control your actions directly, they may try to control your interpretation of reality. They give mixed signals. They say one thing and do another. They disappear, then return. They make you question what happened. They deny things they clearly said. They change the subject whenever you ask for clarity. And suddenly you're spending hours thinking, what did they mean? Did I misunderstand? Was it my fault? What should I do? Look at what happened. They didn't have to control your behavior. They controlled your attention. And attention is one of the most valuable things you possess. Every hour you spend obsessing over someone else's behavior is an hour you are not investing in your own life. This is why mental freedom is deeper than physical freedom. You can walk away from someone and still allow them to live inside your head. That's not complete freedom. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly returned to the importance of governing one's own mind. The world can be chaotic. People can be unpredictable. But your mind doesn't have to become a reflection of that chaos. The moment you stop demanding certainty from someone who consistently creates confusion, you regain something important, your attention. And once they realize confusion no longer works, there is often one final attempt. 6. They try to replace you or make you feel replaceable. This one can hurt deeply. Suddenly, they emphasize how many other people they have. They show you who else wants them. They talk about how easily they could move on. They may intentionally make you feel replaceable. The psychological message is simple. You need me more than I need you. But don't accept the frame. Your value doesn't decrease because someone chooses someone else. A person's ability to appreciate you is not the measurement of your worth. Think about how strange it would be to throw away a valuable painting because one person didn't like it. Their opinion would describe their taste, not the objective value of the painting. The same principle applies to human relationships. You should always be willing to improve yourself, but never confuse rejection with proof that you are worthless. Sometimes losing access to someone is not losing your value. It is losing an environment where your value was constantly being questioned. And there is something even more important. Don't respond by trying to prove that you're better. Don't compete. Don't chase. Don't suddenly become desperate to demonstrate what they're missing. Because the moment you need them to regret losing you, they still have influence over you. Real freedom is quieter. You don't need them to regret it. You simply need to stop regretting your decision to protect yourself. But there is still one final tactic. And this one often happens when everything else has failed. 7. They try to pull you back into the old version of yourself. This is the deepest one. Because sometimes people don't actually miss you. They miss the version of you they could control. The version that always answered, always explained, always forgave, always chased, always tolerated, always came back. So when you become calmer, more disciplined, less reactive, more selective, they may try to pull you back. They remind you of the past. They bring up old emotional memories. They recreate familiar situations. They push the exact buttons that used to work. And suddenly, you're tempted to become the old you again. This is why personal growth can make certain relationships uncomfortable. Your transformation changes the rules. The old version of you may have been easier to manipulate. The new version asks questions. The new version pauses. The new version observes. The new version can say, "No," and sleep peacefully afterward. That's not arrogance. That's self-respect. Now wait, there's something you need to understand. After learning all of this, you might think the answer is to become cold, to ignore everyone, to stop caring, to never show emotion, to become completely detached. But that's not strength. That's another form of being controlled. Because if someone can make you become bitter, they still changed you. If someone can make you hate everyone, they still changed you. If someone can make you afraid to trust anyone, they still changed you. Real strength is not becoming emotionless. Real strength is refusing to let your emotions make your decisions for you. You can care without chasing. You can forgive without returning. You can love without surrendering your standards. You can be kind without becoming available to disrespect. You can walk away without needing revenge. That is emotional freedom. So now we can see the real issue. This was never really about controlling other people. It was about controlling yourself. Because if your peace depends on someone behaving correctly, you have handed them the remote control to your mind. If your confidence depends on someone's approval, they can raise or lower it whenever they want. If your happiness depends on whether someone stays, their departure can destroy your entire emotional world. But Stoicism offers another path. Control your response. Control your attention. Control your interpretation. Control your actions. Control your standards. Control your boundaries. And release what was never yours to control. Their opinion, their behavior, their approval, their emotions, their decisions, the past, and the outcome. You don't become powerful when you control everything around you. You become powerful when very little around you can control what's happening inside you. And that is the difference between emotional dependence and inner freedom. Remember the question we started with? What happens when people realize they can't control you? They test your boundaries. They use guilt. They provoke you. They may suddenly become nice. They create confusion. They try to make you feel replaceable. And they may attempt to pull you back into your old identity. But here's the truth. None of these tactics have to work. Because the moment you stop needing someone else to behave differently, you become difficult to manipulate. The goal was never to control them. The goal was to stop allowing them to control you. And once you understand that, you stop fighting the wrong battle. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need the last word. You don't need revenge. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to make someone understand why you walked away. You simply need to remain faithful to the person you are becoming. Protect your peace. Control your response. Don't chase what requires you to abandon yourself. Don't let someone else's behavior become the measurement of your worth. And never confuse silence with weakness. Sometimes silence is simply what happens when you finally stop negotiating with what you already understand. Control what you can. Accept what you cannot. And remain disciplined in everything between the two. If this changed the way you see manipulation, boundaries, emotional control, and relationships, subscribe for more Stoic wisdom, psychology, and self-mastery. And remember what I said at the beginning. When someone realizes they can no longer control you, they may change their tactics, but they can only control you if you keep giving them control. Now you understand what most people never see. The greatest form of power isn't controlling other people. It's becoming someone who no longer needs to.